The Legend of Zelda has some of the greatest soundtracks of all time. This is no surprise. Nearly every single piece of music created for this franchise is a hit. I do put a lot of emphasis on nearly, as there are definitely a few stinkers here and there. Though they are extremely few in number, they most certainly exist. I don't think there's a single Zelda game with a bad soundtrack, but I do think that there are a few mediocre Zelda songs. In this video, I will be going through all 21 of the mainline Zelda games and their soundtracks, picking the worst song in each. Of course, this list is extremely opinion-based, as everyone has their own unique music tastes. I've spent so much time on my channel praising Nintendo and their legendary music creating skills, so I think we're due for some negativity. I do quickly want to go over what made me choose the songs that I did. There were a few checks that I did for each song for me to consider it the worst. And I also just want to say that worst doesn't actually mean bad, it just means that there are songs that I prefer over it. First is the ear test. Does it sound good? If not, it's probably a strong contender for the list. Is it fitting? For the moment these songs are used throughout the game. Is it repetitive or bland? Pretty self-explanatory, I hope. And finally, the association. If a theme is associated with something that I really don't like, it will boost my chances of hating it. Of course, I'm no music connoisseur, so I apologize if my terminology isn't quite accurate. Either way, I'm sure you'll understand the points all the same. This was probably the most challenging list I've ever had to make for a video thus far. So without further ado, let's go over The Legend of Zelda's musical lowlights. Zelda 1 for the NES didn't exactly give us a lot of options when it comes to talking about the soundtrack. There are like 8 songs in the entire game, making the choice really challenging. This is a common problem with a lot of the older Zelda games, as the limited soundtracks make it extremely difficult to pick a least favorite when most of the soundtrack is pretty good. For this game, I used the process of elimination to find the worst song. Ultimately, I found that the menu theme was my least favorite of the bunch. Honestly, not a bad song by any means. The menu theme is a lot more bland than any other song in the soundtrack. And that's not saying that the other songs in this game are these grand, mighty pieces of music, but the lack of even a backing track over the main riff doesn't help its case. I really do like this track as it's quite iconic, but physically cannot put it over any of the others due to how plain it is. As I just mentioned, the earlier soundtracks don't have very much to choose from, and Zelda 2 is no exception. My pick for this game is the ending theme. This is one of the few songs on the list that I genuinely think is good. You're probably wondering why I picked it then, and it's the same reason as the menu theme from Zelda 1. Repetition. I don't think repetition is a negative thing all the time, but for the earlier games that featured more basic melodies, it's definitely not something that I love. Again, I actually think this song is good, just the worst song in Zelda 2. Now do you see why this list was hard to make? A Link to the Past has one of the best and most iconic soundtracks in all of gaming. This greatly complicates my choice for the game. Out of every song I had chosen for this list, I think A Link to the Past might have my favorite worst song. It pains me to put this track on the list as I actually really like it. The Silly Pink Rabbit was my pick for this game, and honestly it could have gone to something else like the cave theme, but I do think that the Silly Pink Rabbit is slightly more annoying, which is why I picked it. You don't hear this song much in the game, playing when you first enter the Dark World and are trapped in your bunny form. I think this soundtrack is really fitting for the moment. It almost sounds weird, and that's exactly how you feel when you're transformed into a bunny and sent to another world. Like I would know. Like I said, it could have gone to the cavern theme here, but I don't think it's annoying at all, just a bit bland. A great Zelda song that unfortunately had to be chosen for this impossible list. Unlike A Link to the Past, my pick for the worst song in Link's Awakening is very easy and should come as no surprise to anyone. The Piece of Power or Guardian Acorn theme might be the most annoying song on this entire list. Well, yes, this track only plays for a short period of time. I was finding myself picking these things up on complete accident way too frequently. One thing that I will give this theme is it sounds exactly how it should, like you just got a power-up. It reminds me a lot of the Mario Star theme, only a lot less iconic and way more annoying. This song was always my pick for this game, but there's another not great song that I want to give some love to, or I guess hate. Key Cavern, specifically the Game Boy version, is a really bad theme as well. Listening to the original version after hearing the Switch remake really makes you realize how limited the hardware was back in the day. The repetitive alien-like beeps followed by this obnoxiously loud whatever this noise is should never be used in a dungeon theme. Like ever. It's no surprise that I love Ocarina of Time. Like, a lot. It's my favorite game of all time, and a large reason for that is the flawless soundtrack. Well, almost flawless. There was always one song that bothered me out of this juggernaut of an OST. Jabu Jabu's belly has a really cool synth sound, but the stomach noises, while fitting, are extremely gross. But that's not my choice for this game. I think that Dodongo's Cavern theme is very fitting, but I can't help but be a little disappointed with it. This song is basically just ambient noises. There's no melody or anything like every other dungeon theme in the game. Though again, I do think it's very fitting with the cavern atmosphere, and the random shriek-like sounds are terrifying. It honestly just pales in comparison to some of the other phenomenal dungeon themes in this game. One of the biggest things to consider when figuring out if a song is bad or not is how it sounds on the given hardware. For example, songs on newer hardware are going to sound a whole lot better than the Game Boy sounds do. I bring this up because this is practically the only reason why I don't like the Camaro's dance from Majora's Mask. And no, I don't mean this version. I mean the original version with just the flute. As previously mentioned, I think this song is heavily hindered by the N64, which might sound weird, but just imagine if this song was used in the Switch title instead. The flute is almost ear-piercing. It's no wonder Camaro wanted to die after hearing this on repeat over and over again. But I actually really like this part of Majora's Mask, so I can't bring myself to entirely hate this theme. Definitely one of the more annoying themes in the franchise. While on the topic of dance themes, Crazy Dance from Oracle of Seasons is my least favorite for this soundtrack. There's really not that much to talk about when it comes to this track. Much like the Acorn or Piece of Power song, this theme suffers from the same thing getting repeated over and over again. However, I do think that Crazy Dance is a lot less annoying than the Acorn song. This song sounds very silly, which is exactly what it should be. Though that doesn't mean that it's all that good either. It honestly feels a bit unfair to pick this song as it's practically just a little jingle, but unfortunately it meets all the requirements and is on the original soundtrack. I really don't have anything crazy to say about this tune, a slightly annoying and silly theme. Now we can finally take a break from all those basic, annoying songs and focus on a theme that I genuinely think is bad. I don't understand why Nintendo keeps making these songs with really heavy bass in them for the Game Boy because it has almost never worked out, and Oracle of Ages' Spirit's Grave is no exception. This song is bad. It's repetitive, irritating to listen to, and honestly might cause you ear damage if you listen to it for too long. The bass in this song is absolutely unbearable, which would be fine if it wasn't 70% of the entire theme. The fact that this song is also the main theme for an entire dungeon makes it so much worse. Having to listen to this over and over again as you try to solve puzzles is extremely annoying. But if you're into really irritating bass, then this song might be right up your alley. But I'll tell ya, it's not up mine. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Four Swords / A Link to the Past Wars song since it's honestly not even that bad and I don't really give a shit about this game. Talus Cave sounds really weird. The build-up is really repetitive and the part of the song after the build-up is done is really odd sounding. Again, I don't think this song is bad at all, just the worst song in this soundtrack, which compared to the other games in the franchise isn't all that great. One thing I really tried not to do when making this list was get my personal bias in the way. Obviously, this whole entire list is biased since it's my personal opinion, but I didn't want to hate on a song just because it was used in a part of the game that I didn't really like. Well, I tried, but I can't resist myself. Returning viewers shouldn't be surprised at all that there is a certain dungeon in Wind Waker that I am not fond of at all. That being the Forsaken Fortress. Well, yes, the reason I hate this song is because it's used in a dungeon that I absolutely despise. I genuinely don't love this song either. The theme actually fits the dungeon pretty well, complementing the infiltration vibe the fortress gives off. But I can't help but be a little bit bored of this theme after a while. The main melody and drums in the background get really repetitive after listening to it for a good 30 minutes straight. Again, I don't hate this song, I just don't love it, you know? Tingle's Tower from Four Swords Adventures is basically what you'd expect for a Tingle-related theme. This song fits the character so well, which honestly might not even be a good thing as Tingle is one of the weirdest, if not the strangest Zelda character ever. As fitting as it is, the circus-like sound of this theme is really irritating and honestly is just too stupid for me to enjoy. Though I do want to give props to this melody for not being repetitive like a lot of the other picks on the list. Can't say I'm surprised that a theme for such an odd character made it on the list. We've finally reached another OST that I actually really enjoy. I think the Minish Cap has one of the most solid soundtracks in the entire franchise. This obviously made picking the worst song in the game really difficult. I actually really like Syrup Shop from Minish Cap, but one thing has always bugged me about it. For some reason, this part of the song sounds off. Like when you can't quite hit the climax of your yawn or something. Apart from that very specific nitpicking, this song does everything it needs to. This song is obviously a callback to the shop theme from Link's Awakening. While I do prefer the Link's Awakening version of this song, the Syrup Shop theme is still okay, just besides that one part. Similar to Minish Cap, Twilight Princess's soundtrack is nearly perfect, featuring some of the most legendary themes we've heard thus far. When I was listening to this soundtrack, there was genuinely not one song in it that I disliked, so I again had to go to the process of elimination to figure out which was the worst, and the theme that I settled on wasn't really a big surprise. The Twilight battle theme from Twilight Princess is one of the most horrifying pieces of music in the entire franchise. Rightfully so, the monsters you fight when this music plays in the background are just as creepy as this jumble of noise. I honestly have no clue what could have created this noise or what it's supposed to be. All I know is that it's really weird. Somebody in the comment section of this YouTube video said a wasp in each ear, and I honestly can't unhear it now. Actually, it sounds a lot less creepy now that I think about the bees. Time for another theme that I dislike almost purely from the heavy bass. Dark Memories from Phantom Hourglass has one of the most repetitive bass lines I've ever heard. This song is honestly not very annoying, but I'm not a big fan of the repetition. Many had mentioned how this track is actually a mix of the Light World dungeon theme from A Link to the Past, which is actually a great theme, so I appreciate the callback. This song isn't actually horrible, just the worst in Phantom Hourglass, which I really didn't expect to have such a solid soundtrack when I was doing my listen. There was really nothing else from this game that stood out to me as bad or even the worst, which is why Dark Memories gets the unfortunate gift of being the worst song in Phantom Hourglass. Something I'm really starting to notice when making this list is how much I dislike repetition when it comes to music. Many of the tracks I've already chosen stood out due to their annoying repetition. Unfortunately, my least favorite theme in Spirit Tracks is Catching a Rabbit, which falls right under the annoying repetition category. As nostalgic as they are, I really dislike the sounds of the DS, which makes the song about 10 times more annoying than it would have been if it would have been made on modern hardware. My least favorite part of this song is the background track behind the main trumpet melody. It stands out way too much and I can't seem to get it out of my head. Overall, a really irritating and repetitive song. Alright, I'm gonna be honest. I basically picked this one out of a hat. Out of all the 21 Zelda soundtracks, Skyward Sword was by far the hardest to pick a worse song from. I genuinely think every single song on this soundtrack is good. I might even go as far as to say that Skyward Sword has the best Zelda soundtrack ever, which I'm sure many others will agree on. I had dabbled with the thought of putting the Imprisoned theme on here just because of how much I hate the boss, but even that theme is really great. I ended up going with Magma's and the Fire Sanctuary, but I don't even think that this is the right choice. This theme is still quite good, and I would by no means say it's a bad or even mediocre tune. I'm a big fan of the Magma, and the music associated with the race is a huge reason why. However, this version is definitely my least favorite of the bunch. The worst song in Skyward Sword is something I feel will change a lot to me in the future depending on how I'm feeling. Definitely the hardest choice I've had to make for the video thus far. But the choices won't get any easier from here. A Link Between Worlds is arguably my favorite Zelda game ever. I genuinely think that this game is borderline perfect and the music is no exception. My pick for the worst track in A Link Between Worlds is Osfala Captured. This is another entry where I don't think the song is bad whatsoever, just the weakest in a stacked soundtrack. This theme is played when Osfala is captured by Yuga in the Eastern Palace, which is like a 30-second dialogue cutscene thing, meaning that this theme has almost no importance or impact on the game. It's also pretty repetitive, but it makes sense why. There's no need to make an epic theme for something that you'll spend 30 seconds listening to. Another game with a really great soundtrack. Lucky me. Well, it's about time I shared a secret with you guys. This list isn't actually about finding the worst song in every Zelda game. It's about finding the best song in every Zelda game, and I think we might have just found the best Zelda song ever. Take a listen. Yep, this is the one. Triforce Heroes, The Convicted Princess might be the most boring theme on the list thus far. It's quite literally one note held for a minute, which by the way is apparently a D, with the exception of a door closing and the occasional drum in the background. I feel like this shouldn't even count for the list, but it's on the soundtrack, therefore it counts. Pretty sure you get the gist, so let's move on to a more interesting song. Breath of the Wild has one of the most hated soundtracks in the entire franchise. Many complained that this OST lacked the epic songs like the previous titles had, instead going for a more ambient approach. I for one think people are stupid. Breath of the Wild's soundtrack is great, and I'm done with pretending that it's not. Sure, the older soundtracks might have better songs, but the more ambient vibe worked really well for this huge new iteration of Hyrule. My least favorite song in this really long soundtrack is the Gammon Contest. Yeah, this is a really weird theme. I actually had a really difficult time picking my least favorite song in Breath of the Wild, mainly because of how different the themes are from the previous games, and also this soundtrack is long as balls. Nothing really stood out to me other than this really odd theme. The slow build-up and the strange voice-like sounds repeating over and over again does a really good job at capturing the Goron competition feel. Though a song can only be so weird until it becomes annoying, and I think this track slightly overdoes it a bit. Not a bad song by any means, just a bit annoying and really odd. Until this point, I don't think any of my selections have been too controversial. Well, let's change that. Tears of the Kingdom has a huge soundtrack. I believe it's actually the biggest in the entire franchise. During my listen, there weren't many themes that stood out to me as bad or even annoying, so I was once again forced into the elimination game. And the song that came out on top as my least favorite was shocking to even myself. I'm sure we all remember our first time exploring the freezing Hebra Mountains, Link needing to layer up or drink a potion, and the song that plays non-stop during your time up north. Cold Temperatures is my least favorite song in Tears of the Kingdom, which I honestly find really weird. I was expecting Tears of the Kingdom to have a few really weird or bad songs in this giant soundtrack, but there was honestly nothing. The reason I landed on Freezing Temperatures is due to the repetition and association. I was really not a huge fan of exploring the cold areas of this game, especially when you don't have the right gear. And this theme plays the entire time when Link is freezing his ass off. I do think it's very fitting, and as someone from Canada, I even find myself thinking about this song when it starts to snow in real life. But this tune's repetitive nature is unfortunately quite irritating. We've now reached the final game on the list, that being the most recent addition in Echoes of Wisdom. This was the most recent Zelda game I had played, so the soundtrack was still pretty fresh on my mind. The Stamp Guy theme is my pick for the worst song in Echoes of Wisdom. It really reminds me of the Tingle Tower theme mentioned earlier, as they're both weird as shit, which is very fitting to the character, but it doesn't stop it from being annoying. This song is all over the place. There's so much going on that I genuinely can't think straight when this song plays. But I can't hate the Stamp Guy entirely, and that's because...
Before you ask, yes! This is a JoJo reference!
He's pretty freaking sexy. That does it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, I really appreciate it. I wasn't kidding when I said that this was the most difficult list I've ever had to make. When a franchise has as great of a soundtrack as The Legend of Zelda does, picking the worst song in every game can be quite challenging, or really easy, depending on the game. I hope you could agree with a lot of my picks, and if you had different picks, be sure to comment them below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. We are slowly approaching 10,000 subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if you guys could help me reach my goal. I've got a lot of great videos coming out soon, so be sure to also turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload or a stream. Again, thank you guys for your continued support. I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for you guys, so I thank you. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your time, it means a lot. I'll see you all soon.